Ooh, that's loud. All right, quadratics. First things first, quadratics. It's all about finding the x-intercepts. That is that's the main idea behind most of the questions that are in quadratics. Remember, I have told you before, half of that STAR test is about quadratics. You need to be able to find those x-intercepts. The good news about this foldable is that it's going to show you how to find them without actually doing any work. A bunch of calculator tricks. Now, one thing you do have to know, I cannot show you a trick for, is that the x-intercept is referred to as a solution, as a root, as a zero. The least common is the root, but you will see the word for sure, solutions and zeros, in the STAR test. So you need to know that all three of those words are all referring to the x-intercept. They're the same exact thing. You find those x-intercepts either by literally looking at a graph and finding where that parabola crosses the x-axis, or you can calculate those by factoring. If you look at this equation over here, just look at it on my screen, you cannot solve for x by combining 4 and 12 because 4 has an x squared and 12 doesn't. Remember, to add things, they have to be like terms, and these are not. The only way to solve for x for any quadratic is by factoring. Either by factoring or by using the quadratic formula, the one that most of us are not comfortable with anyway. But good news, once again, there is a calculator trick for each and every one of those. Now, other questions from quadratics may also include asking you what the y-intercept is. If they're asking for the initial value, beginning, starting point, they're asking for the y-intercept. It could ask you for the vertex. The vertex is a point on the graph, but we label it as HK. We label it as HK. It's still an X and Y point. It's a coordinate on the graph, but we label it with HK because if you think about it, you cannot plug in another X and another Y into an equation that already has an X and Y. That would be too confusing, okay? Now your vertex can also be subcategorized into a minimum and a maximum value. Minimum meaning the lowest point and maximum being the highest. Okay. Axis of symmetry, that's that imaginary line that splits the parabola in half. We'll cover that in this packet as well. But the other type of question that could be asked on quadratics is transformations. What happens if I change A? What happens if I change C, H, and K? But that's covered in another packet. So today, we're looking at the main part of quadratics, what you are most likely to be tested on, okay? Now, the two equations that we use a lot with quadratics is them being written in standard form or the equations being written in vertex form. Now, the only reason we even need to know how to go back from function notation and standard and vertex form, equation and function notation form, is with transformations. So I'm not even going to get into this right now. Okay. We will see this again in packet 7, but we did practice at one point going back and forth from y equals form to f of x form, equation form to function notation form. Okay. You do need to know the parts. These are some easy questions that you could be asked on the STAR test. For example, what is the vertex? This arrow right here is pointing to the vertex. It's pointing to the very top of the parabola. That is called your vertex. Yes, you would identify it as an X and a Y value, but once again, we use the variables H and K for the vertex in algebra. We use H and K. It's still an X and Y coordinate. It could specifically, even though we're talking about this same area in the parabola, this same point on the parabola, it could specifically ask you for the minimum or the maximum. Minimum meaning the low point, the lowest number on the parabola, maximum meaning the highest. But if it does ask you for the minimum or the maximum, just know or just remember that we're specifically talking about the Y value. And we will have some examples or a couple of examples that cover that. This box right here is pointing to what part of the parabola? What is this point called? It's your y-intercept. Now, we already wrote the other words that they could use for the y-intercept. Most of the time with quadratics, they will actually use the word y-intercept, so we're not going to write the other words. This one, this is the main part of quadratics. This is the main part of quadratics. Both of these arrows are pointing to what? They're both pointing to your x-intercepts. They're pointing to the x-intercept. They're pointing to the x-intercepts, once again known as your zeros, your solutions, and your not so popular word roots. Not so popular word roots. Obviously, if you're given a picture, if you're given an actual graph, answering this question would be as easy as finding the numbers -1, finding that 5, and saying, okay, my zeros are -1 and 5, or my solutions are -1 and 5. But you're not always given a graph. Sometimes you do have to calculate those, because sometimes all you're given is an equation. So you would have to factor kidnap to find what those two numbers are. But when we factor in kidnap, just know this is what we're looking for. You're just not always given a graph. Now, this last box right here is pointing to what? It's an imaginary line, and that is called our axis of symmetry. Axis is another word for a line. So, in other words, a line of symmetry. Splitting the parabola in half into equal halves. Because it is a vertical line, the only way to describe that vertical line is by using the equation that starts with x equals. X equals. Every axis of symmetry is going to start with x equals, at least in algebra 1. Every axis of symmetry is going to start with x equals. This one would be x equals 2 because it's crossing through that 2. But just know that it starts with x equals, because just knowing that much, you could eliminate probably 2 answers. And we're not going to have an example in the foldable that's covering this, because that is just something that is too easy. Okay. Turn the page. Vertex. Vertex is something that a lot of us miss. So yes, I did include it into our foldable. When you're asked for the vertex, it's going to either ask you for the minimum or the maximum value. In this example right here, it's asking what is the minimum value of J? What is the minimum value of J? In other words, what is the lowest Y value of J? Notice how I didn't include any answer choices. Lowest Y value. Notice how I didn't include any answer choices. That is because this is a bubble in type question. Do not miss it over something like this. Do not miss a griddable because you don't know what a minimum value is. Find the lowest point. And what is the lowest point here? The whole coordinate is -2, -9. Now, since we're only asking for the Y value, since it's only specifically asking for the Y value, you would bubble in -9. That's what you would bubble in. Look at this next example. It says, or it states, what is the maximum? The question says, what is the maximum value of the graph of the function? What is the maximum? Maximum would be your highest Y value. What would be the highest Y value? Now, the highest point on this graph, notice how you have 1, 2, 3, 4 other points labeled. Which one of these 4 am I going to use? We're looking for the maximum value. Think about it. Which one of these 4 would I use? None of them. Correct. On the STAR test, a lot of the times they're going to include points that you don't even need. This is a y-intercept. Believe it or not, people are going to try to pick this number. You don't need any of these 4 points. We're asking for the maximum value, for the highest point. Neither one of those 4 are the highest. This is my highest right here. The ordered pair for that, let's say if I go straight down, just because there's, I mean, everything's in decimals down here. It falls in between 3.5 and 4. In between 3.5 and 4 is 3.75. That's my X value. And if I go straight back across to the left, it lines up with the 225 on the y-axis. Lines up with the 225. So which one of those two numbers would I actually bubble in? The 225. 225. Once again, please don't miss this griddable. It's not a difficult problem. Okay. Next part. Questions on this? All right. Vertex form, the downfall of probably 90% of my students. The downfall of 90% of my students is vertex form. Good news, there's an easy way. First things first, you need to observe this. I have your testing strategies listed right here. Okay. Yes, it's a lot of words. Yes, you got to read a little bit. Get over it. This is going to help you. Testing strategy, observe. Notice that they're giving you two coordinates, 2 points on that graph. They're giving you 2 points. One of them specifically being the vertex, being my H and K. One of those being the H and K. And if you look at all of your answer choices as well, you'll notice that they are all solved for Y. All of your answer choices are solved for Y. So there is a way to solve this or to find the answer to this question without having to do any actual work, any actual solving, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. But this part 1, I'm going to put a little star next to it because this part is optional. It is optional. If you don't know if you don't know this part, you don't have to know it to answer this question, but it makes your life a lot easier. Since plugging the H, plugging that number in the parentheses is the most difficult part for you guys, we're going to focus on eliminating any answer that doesn't match K. That doesn't match K. If you look at vertex form on your formula chart, let me go back. Where is my, on your formula chart, H is inside of the parentheses, K is outside. All we're looking for is K right now. So H is the number in the parentheses, K is the number outside. I never said anything about K being opposite of anything. So which 2 answer choices do not have a -7K? A and C. If you look at A, it has a +7, C has a +7. If it's a -7 here, it needs to be a -7 in the equation. So we are eliminating A and C. Are we okay with that? From there, step 2, with the remaining answers, you're going to type them into Y1, one at a time. Don't try to be a hero and type everything in at the same time. No, one at a time. And you're going to press second graph to see which one of these 2 equations matches the points that we are given. So I'm going to go to Y equals, type it in exactly the way you see it. Erase anything you may see from what my 5th period left. So negative, to type in a fraction, alpha Y equals 3/4, parentheses, X plus 3. And you don't have to look at my screen because you have it in front of your face. -7. This is answer choice B. So I'm going to hit second graph to look at my table. Second graph. And what does it give you for 1? Does it give you -10? No, it gives you -19. This equation doesn't give you 1 -10. It gives you 1 -19. This equation does not give you 3 -7. It gives you 3 -34. Everybody see that? Are we okay with that? But since these are notes, I need to know, once I go back to study, I need to know, why did we get rid of B? Because it gives us 1 -19 and it gives us 3 negative what? -34. -34. The points do not match. Okay. I'm eliminating B for now. The only difference between B and D literally is the plus and the minus inside of the parentheses. So go back to your y equals and change that plus to a minus. Press second graph. And notice 1, -10, 1, -10, 3, -7, 3, -7. Everybody see that? So are we okay with this? You now know how to do vertex form without actually doing any work. You're welcome. But because these are notes, once again, we're going to write some extra stuff in. So this one does, this equation, when I put it into y equals, it does give me the 1, -10. And it does give me 3, -7. Highlight those two. This is my correct answer choice because this one gives me the points that I'm looking for. Enter in the page unless you have any questions. All right, the middle section of this booklet, of this foldable, is talking about matching the graph to the equations. Now, I had a little extra space to work with, so I put the example on the left side and the testing strategies right over here on the right side, okay? So when you will use this testing strategy when you see a graph, and if you look at your answer choices, all of your answer choices are in the form of an equation, meaning I have to match the equation to the graph. So non-optional, identify a few good points. So give me a few good points on this graph. 264. 264 is the popular choice today, 264. That is a very good point to identify. So 264. Any point that we identify, we have gotten in the habit of putting an X and Y over it. What is another one? 0, 0. Now, there is actually a special name, not the origin, for this 0, 0. If I talk about the origin, I'm talking about the graph in general. But this point on my parabola is also known as what? It's my y-intercept. It is where my parabola crosses the y-axis. It is known as my y-intercept. So I'm going to write y-intercept right here, right under it. That's good information to know. Don't have to know it for those of you that have never been able to figure out what a y-intercept is, but good information to know. It makes things go a lot faster, makes your life a lot easier. What's another point? You could use 148. Could use 148. 148. And what else? And then 4, 0. Okay. So optional, once again, it's not going to make you miss the problem, but optional. You can eliminate a couple of answer choices, which would save you some time on typing. You can eliminate some answer choices based on what the y-intercept is. Based on what the y-intercept is. Look at your answer choices. They're all in standard form. Standard form for a quadratic is ax squared plus bx plus c. What part of standard form represents the y-intercept, A, B, or C? C represents the y-intercept. And what two answer choices have a y-intercept that does not represent a 0, 0 y-intercept? B and D. You see this negative 256 right here. That is stating, or that equation is saying that the y-intercept is crossing at negative 256, which is not true. So I could go ahead and eliminate B and D. If you don't know to do this, you can still finish this problem, okay? Remember, the y-intercept, or if you think about it, the y-intercept is 0. So I've told you time and time again, you can write the plus 0. I'm not going to take points off, but just know they're not going to write plus 0 on the STAR test because a 0 doesn't change the equation. It's technically non-existent, right? With the remaining equations, type them each into y1 because they are solve for y. Because they are solve for y, and then match it to your own points. So go to y equals, erase anything that you already have there. Oh Lord, yep. Negative 16 t squared minus 64 t. You don't have to type in that plus 0. That is something that I wrote in. All you have to do is type in what's printed. If you don't know that there's a plus 0 there, invisible plus 0, don't worry about it. Press second graph. And this one does give you 0, 0, but what does the number 1 give you? Negative 80. The number 2 gives you negative 192. Does that match the point that I identified here? No. But once again, these are notes. So I want to know, if I go back and look at this, I want to know, why did I get rid of it? Okay. It gave me 2 negative 192 instead of 264. It gave me 4 negative 512 instead of 40. And that's not what I'm looking for. That's why I'm getting rid of A. Are we okay with that? All right. Highlight this. The only difference between A and C is this minus sign changes to a plus sign. The minus sign in between the 16 and 64 changes to a plus sign. So let's go back to y equals and change it. Plus. And there you'll be able to see 0, 0. There's my 148, my 264, 348, and my 4, 0. So your answer is C. Questions? And I actually included that picture of the graph right here. 0, 0, highlight it, 148, 264, 348, 4, 0. I found all of the points that are supposed to be part of it. All right. They could ask you the same type of question, but backwards. They could ask you the same type of question, but backwards. They could also give you the equation. So what I did with this example, this is an example that's going to come from your packet. This is not, I'm not giving you the answer. I'm helping you with it. I typed the equation into Y1. When I type it into Y1, it gave me this table. They can give you the equation and then you have to match it to one of 4 graphs. I have picked one of the 4 graphs. I purposely picked the wrong graph. I didn't even include the answer choice. So you're gonna have to figure out which answer choice this is representing, okay? I typed the equation in a y equals, and this is the table that it gave me. This is the wrong answer choice. It's one of the 4 answer choices, but what is the easiest point you can identify on this graph? -3, -10. -3, -10. The easiest whole number point that I can identify. And if you look at what we're supposed to find, we're looking for a graph that gives us -3, -28. So no, it doesn't match what I'm looking for. So that's why this is not the correct answer, whatever graph that is. I don't even know if it's A, B, C, D. I don't know if it's F, G, H, J, but this one is not my answer. What's your question? A what? This one should have a maximum. If you type that into y equals and you look at the graph, it should have a maximum. You're right. Because this negative reflects the parabola and it makes it flip upside down like that. So yeah, you're right. Yes, Hagen. Yes. Turn the page. Solutions. This is the hard part. This is what I'm going to teach you so you avoid having to factor, having to kidnap, having to use the diamond, whatever. For those people that never learned it, this is for you. Okay. Look for the word equivalent. What does the word equivalent mean? Equal to, meaning the same, meaning they represent the same thing. Saying, if I solve this, like we learned how to solve it, if I solve this, which one of these equations would it give me? So steps. Notice how the equation given in the problem is solved for y. You're going to type this equation into y1. And you're going to type your answer choices one at a time. Once again, don't try to be a hero. Don't try to type them all in at the same time into y2. Okay? Type the equation from the question into y1 and the equation from the first answer choice from A into y2. And I did underline one at a time. So let me get that typed in myself. I'm over here, big talk. Hold up, 3 parentheses, x plus 2. You do not have to do any solving. You don't have to multiply that 2. You don't have to do anything. Just type the equation in. The answer choice is 3x squared plus 12x plus 33. And then press second graph. Go to the table, press second graph. That is step 3 in your notes. And what we're looking at is we're looking at the last 2 columns. Step 4, match the last 2 columns. The numbers have to match exactly. So if I see a 19 here, I need to see a 19 here, a positive 19, not a negative 19. But since neither of those numbers match, I know that they're not equivalent. They're not the same. They're not equal. I can get rid of answer choice A. Let's type in answer choice B. Highlight this. The only difference between answer choice A and B is that plus 33 changed to a plus 19. So I'm going to go to Y1 and change that plus 33 to a plus 19. I don't change anything else. You don't have to change the top part. That's not going to change. Plus 19. And then press second graph. And what do you get? You get, ooh, what did I do? I messed something up. I forgot the 12x. Second, insert x. There it is. I probably did the same thing in the other one too. 19, 19, 34, 34, 55, 55, positive 82, positive 82, positive 115, positive 115. They are exactly the same. That is your correct answer. Both equations are representing the same thing. And yes, I do want you to highlight last 2 columns in your notes. And I'm also going to ask you to fill in. I whited out the rest of that equation because I didn't want you to be lazy. So plus 12x plus 19. That is what we typed in to get this table. This is what a correct answer looks like. So your answer is B. Questions? You can use the same strategy for a similar problem. You can use the same strategy for a similar problem. And since we just had one person walk back in, I'm going to repeat it again. You can use the same strategy for a similar problem. The keywords that you're looking for here is where the questions that say write a statement about this equation that is true. You yourself have to notice that f of x equals is the same as having a y equals. So this equation is what I would type into y1. All of this is what I would type into y1. But I look at my answer choices, they're sentences. The negative 5, 2, negative 5 over 2, and negative 1, that's not an equation. But I keep reading or I keep looking. Notice how the ends of each one of these answer choices, those are in y equals. Those are solved. This is what I'm going to put into y2. I'm going to put my factors, my binomials, step 2, my factors or my binomials from the answer choices into y2. So let's do that. Let's type in that first one. I'm going to clear whatever I already have in there. 2x squared minus 3x minus 5. And then in my binomials, x plus 1, 2x plus 5. Hit second graph. Does that match? Second graph. No, it does not. Even though I see 5s, I'm not going to jump the gun. First of all, you need to know just because one is negative and one is positive, that still does not represent a correct answer. But neither of the rest of the numbers match anyway. So not it. But because of time purposes, I'm going to go ahead and give you the answer because you're still going to have some examples in your packet that are that will allow you to practice this. The right answer is C. And the only difference between A and C is changing that plus with the 2.5, that plus sign to a minus sign. So go back to Y2 and change the 2x plus 5 to a 2x minus 5. That's it. And hit second graph. And there's your correct answer. -5, -5, -6, -6. Questions? Equivalent. They represent the same thing. If I were to take this binomial, use box or FOIL, it would give me this answer. Or if I take this, kidnap, and solve, it would give me these two binomials. Okay. So once again, highlight all of this, highlight both last columns. And because I did white out this part, go ahead and fill this in. Put your x plus 1, put your 2x minus 5. I whited that out from whenever they made copies. Yes, all of them. You need to be looking at both last. I whited out a lot of stuff in here, yeah. Because I wanted you to actually fill it in yourself, not be lazy and look at my answers and go from there. All right. Solutions. This is for my friends that always forget to take that last step. They always forget to, they can find the binomials, they're okay with factoring, but we always forget to finish solving for X. Solutions. Solutions is what you get when you're done solving for X. This is when you're actually finding the actual x-intercepts. There is a way to find the answer without doing any solving. Because if you remember, we would move the 11x back over, then factor, or then kidnap and factor, et cetera, et cetera. But believe it or not, to this day, I got people moving the 11 back over by subtracting, even though you clearly see a negative here. So this is also for you, okay? You can do this, you can. Notice that I wrote it in the steps. You can factor, you can kidnap. If you're still okay with that, if you want to go with that, if you forget how to do this calculator trick, go for it. Kidnap, factor, do what you got to do. But if you don't know how to do it, I highly, highly suggest you learn how to do this calculator trick. Step 1. First things first, notice these are in brackets. Brackets are not the same as parentheses. This is representing my x-intercept is -5. My x-intercept is -1.5 or 2.5 and 3 or 1.5 and 5. This is not an ordered pair. This is not an x and a y value. And there is no y's here anyway, okay? You can substitute. What does it mean to substitute? It means to replace. Since x equals, since they are the same, they are identical, I can change any and every x that I see in the problem with a -5. So I'm going to rewrite this equation. I'm not going to move anything. I'm not going to add. I'm not going to subtract. I'm going to just rewrite it. But instead of an x, I'm going to leave some parentheses with a blank because I don't know if that -5 is going to be my correct answer. Equals -11 and parentheses. I don't know if that -5 is going to be the correct answer, but I do know whatever number gives me the correct answer, I'm going to put it in that spot. And I am going to use parentheses. Anytime you substitute anything, please use parentheses, okay? Now look at we already rewrote it. Look at step 2. Type the left side of the equation. Go to your home screen, second quit, go to this part, type the left side of that equation into your home screen. But once again, don't leave it blank. Go ahead and put that -5 because that's the first number that we're going to test. Okay, -5. Don't change the squared. Squared is still there. I'm just replacing every x with a -5 for now. Hold on. No. Did you put enter? That's not what step 2 says. actually step 3. Step 3 says press second math. Press second math. Because we still have equals negative 11x. Everybody see that equal sign? That is how you put an equal sign into your home screen. So now I can finish writing the rest of the equation. Negative 11. And then my negative 5. Everybody got that? Press enter. What do you get? How? That means you did not type it in correctly. Did y'all put in minus signs instead of negatives? A lot of people got error. Hold on. Let me pause this video. Now you can say it. You do get 0. And what does 0 mean? Look at 5B. What does 0 mean?
False.
It means false. It means that it is not the correct answer. Once again, because of time, and I just spent some time correcting those minus and negatives, we're going to do this again, but with the right answer. Let's see what you get when you type it in correctly. The right answer should be a negative 3. So I'm going to type this again, 2 parentheses with the negative 3 this time. Okay, type it in. I know I'm giving you the right answer, but I am not giving you the right answer to the STAR test. Okay, they are going to give you different numbers. So practice it. I'm gonna put a negative 3 right there. And what do you get? You should get a 1. 1 represents, look at 5A, 1 represents true. It means that it is the correct answer. But on the actual day of the STAR test, I want you to take the time and to check all of those points, because even though these other 2 give you 0, you may get a problem where you get 3 1s and 1 0, and that would be your answer. Got it? Pick the one that doesn't belong. Pick the here. Look up. 3 zeros and a 1. Obviously, this is not the same as others. If you get 3 1s and a 0, that wouldn't be the same as others. Okay. Last. What if it doesn't give you an answer choice? What if you feel like you're forced to solve? Good news, you're not forced to solve it. You're still not forced to solve that equation. But this one is specifically asking us for the positive solution. Asking us for the positive solution. This is the strategy that you would use. You type the left side of that equation into y1 and the right side of it into y2. Type the left side into y1, the right side into y2. You have to go to y equals to find y1 and y2, okay? This is not a home screen type. I don't have numbers that I could test, okay? So 4x squared, I don't have x values that I can plug in. So I got to do this one a little different, okay? After you're done, press graph, just simply press, actually do zoom 6. Go ahead and press zoom 6. Once you're done typing that in, press zoom 6. Zoom 6 is your standard window. This is what you should see whenever you're freshly memory cleared and whatnot. But if you look at 3A, it says you should be able to see a horizontal line going through the parabola. Can we see that here? No. So if you can't do that, you can either zoom out or press zoom 0. Zoom 0, the name of zoom 0 is, or the words that it has under zoom 0 is zoom fit. It will zoom out and it will zoom out perfectly so you can see everything you're supposed to be able to see, the vertex, the intersections, whatever. So we're trying to find where they intersect. To do that, press second trace, and we're trying to find where they cross, so press number 5. As soon as that first question pops up, don't have to move anything. As soon as it pops up, enter, enter, enter. And there's my intersection, the 4.5. That's my solution. So highlight that little 4.5, write the word solution under it. And that is the answer. That's what you would bubble in. X equals 4.5. So no, you're not, so you are not stuck there testing out different numbers. But with every positive solution, there can also be a what? Negative solution. So to cover all of our bases, we also need to know how to find that negative one. So press second trace again. Second trace number 5. My little star is still on that positive side of it. So I need to actually move it this way. So hold the left arrow until you get there. And it's going to take a little bit. It's going to take a few seconds. You can do it. Hang on. Oh, Lord. And as soon as you can put it as close as you can to that intersection, press enter 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And there's the positive, there's the negative solution for it. X equals negative 7.5. I'm not going to box that in because that's not what I'm bubbling in. It's not asking me for a positive, but I am going to label it as my negative solution. I am going to label it as my negative solution. Once again, just in case on the STAR test, they asked me for the negative instead of the positive. And now you just avoided having to move the 135 to the left side, kidnapping, solving for X, easy.